So Reuven Carlyle is a former Democratic state lawmaker in Washington. He's also a Jewish American. He actually spoke a few days ago at a vigil for Israel and talked about this sort of false equivalency that has been pushed by, he didn't mention specifically progressives, but I think it's clear who he's talking about.
There is no dialogue about justifying this unprovoked war. There is no excuse in discussing moral equivalency.
There is no moral equivalency. There is no justifying it. There is no excusing it. Yet why do so many progressives try to do that? Why have we seen that in Seattle? Why have we seen that from members of Congress? And so I had a conversation again with Reuven Carlyle about just that. You have kids who are currently students at the University of Washington.
I do.
What was it like for you to see the protests that happened there on October 12th? I'm assuming you've seen the same videos I have of Jewish students in tears.
What are people dead? They want us killed.
You know, this to me, more than any protest I've seen in Washington, really read as pro-Hamas. I mean, it was advertised with a flyer that depicted with heroism a Hamas paraglider. So for you to see that, knowing your kids go there, how does that sit with you as a dad?
Yeah, it's incredibly unsettling. I mean, look, I think we all know that there is a very important healthy tension in terms of free speech in universities and around this country. The essence of the First Amendment is the soul of our nation, and it is vital to every aspect. At the same time, you have a scenario here where you do have a small number of folks who can get a lot of attention and cause a lot of hurt and harm and disequilibrium with those types of signs and those types of chants and that type of speech. It does have consequences. And it does have implications. We also have the pushback, as you see at the University of Pennsylvania, at Harvard University, and many places around the country. So the University of Washington, I think, is trying to navigate its way through this challenging time. But you are going to have a handful of students, and they are going to set in motion a level of protest. And part of their goal is to raise the tension level. It's clear. And I think that's an unfortunate way to express your views. I think there's no moral equivalency in any way.
Well, and you talked about that in your remarks at the vigil. And, you know, moral consistency is a big thing, and I preach about it a lot. And one of the things, I guess, that strikes me, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is as a Democrat, you know, when I think of this and I think of the many protests that I've covered over the years, and I just can't help but feel like if this were a group of far-right neo-Nazis at the University of Washington, that the condemnation would have been so much more swift, and there would have been no hesitancy to condemn it outright. Do you feel like I'm right in believing that?
I think that's a fair assessment. And I think it also points to some of the underlying elements of this problem, which is we have a deep sense of anti-Semitism on the far right. And I think we have a very compelling case in many scenarios that it's clear that there's a deep sense of anti-Semitism on the far left. And there is no question in my mind that discomfort with the nation of Israel as a democracy and as a Jewish state is something that a lot of folks on the far left are uncomfortable with. A lot of the anti-Semitism on the far right, as we know, is driven by conspiracy theories and domination and world control and money and media and power. You know, a lot of old cliches and stereotypes that go back to the propaganda of the last century.
Maybe Democrats who are kind of trying to navigate what you call a complex situation aside, you know, certainly there are a few who I would say are actively I would say anti-Semitic. I'll leave it to you to characterize it as you see fit. But you look at Rashida Tlaib, I mean, who's running through the halls of Congress away from a reporter who's asking if she'll condemn the murder of babies, saying nothing.
You can't comment about Hamas terrorists chopping off babies' heads.
You have Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of our state who has said recently that she believes Israel is a racist state and tried to backpedal it. What do you think your party is to do about that wing of the party?
I think that there's unequivocally a reality that there is a sense of tension in the far left of the Democratic Party about the role and the reality of Israel today, and that's in many ways a pushback against the Netanyahu government for some, And for some, that's a pure political excuse. They just are deeply opposed to Israel. So that is a reality among some on the far left. I think that anti-Semitism plays a role for some of them. But, as the Jewish people say, it's really about action and not just intent. And I think we're at a time where the action of the United States and the Biden administration, an overwhelming majority of both Democrats and Republicans, has been to support the nation of Israel against this terrorist attack by Hamas. Dealing with the implications is not easy, but the fact that the President of the United States is there today needs to be commended for that moral authority leadership. And I think, as a general rule, the overwhelming majority of Democrats and Republicans strongly support Israel.
Yeah. Do you think that you had mentioned that some of it might be driven by anti-Semitism? Do you believe Congresswoman Jayapal is an anti-Semite?
I don't think she's an anti-Semite. I just think that she has a deep affiliation for the Palestinian community. I think she has a deep affinity and connection to that community. And those are important folks to her and allies and voters and community members. I don't think that at her core that she is anti-Semitic. I do not feel like she is a strong supporter of Israel. And I think she's sort of indicated that by most of her votes. But there are times when she has stepped up when needed in terms of some of the support for Israel. So I think she has complex feelings toward the nation. But of course, I think you have to talk to her directly to really get her sense. But no, I don't believe that she's anti-Semitic.